All right, hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. He is the master of cyber farms, Alfredo B. Nash Jr., and I, the people's chief, Dr. Joseph J. Permilla Jr. And we are your hosts for the Cyber Coffee Hour. Now, the Cyber Coffee Hour originates from Mount Vernon, New York, and we're excited to hear the experiences and stories of our incredible guests. Our mission is to share knowledge, deepen understanding, and foster a sense of community in the vast realm of cyberspace. So for today's show, we'll have a coffee chat with Dr. Kathi Middleton, a career coach at Momentum Education. Now, Dr. Kathi Middleton is a strategic technology leader, TEDx speaker, and author with over 20 years of experience driving transformation across cybersecurity, enterprise learning, and IT operations. She has served as a leader in both cybersecurity and technology, learning at several Fortune 50 companies, delivering high impact initiatives, including cloud certification roadmaps, security programs, and product management curriculum for hundreds of technology professionals. As a founder of Momentum Professional Development, she also empowers individuals and organizations through coaching, speaking, and curated learning experiences. Her career spans diverse industries, including healthcare, telecommunications, and financial services. Dr. Kathi holds a PhD in educational technology and certifications, including PMP, CISM, CSPO, and Google Cloud Digital Leader. She is passionate about building inclusive teams and helping others lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Dr. Kathi Middleton, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Thank you.
All right. So, for one, Dr. Kathi, it's been a definite, I'll say, it's been a long time coming because I actually been following you, for quite a bit, especially going back to your TEDx talk. So I don't know if I'll say like even a fan, but no, but definitely been just following your work, and I think it's amazing. So I'm definitely glad to have you on the Cyber Coffee Hour today. Yeah, just doing a quick catch up as we always do. So I'll start with you, Dr. Kathi. Just just how you've been doing this past week, and as we in the middle of this weekend, as you're kind of getting ready for the new week upon us.
I'm doing great. My daughter just finished her freshman year of college and she's home for the summer. So it's been great catching
Nice.
up with her, getting back into the swing of having someone need me and, keeping up with just work demands and life demands. But it's been a great week.
Awesome. Alfredo.
Hey, so I'm gonna slow down a little bit since the last episode. I take it by the numbers. Yesterday, I had a pretty action-packed day with the Maryland Master Naturalists. I've been on the gauntlet of training with them, and I'm at my home site is the Still Meadow Peace Park in Baltimore City. So yesterday, we finally went out and built what we call bioswale, which is a water retention park and piece of the park to stop flooding in the Ellicott City and Irvington area. It was a pretty big flood back in that area a few years ago, and I just learned that historically it's always been a flood kind of plain. But yesterday I was out there helping the folks at Still Meadow Peace Park plant a number of trees and give away trees, a couple thousand trees, I think, to the residents of Baltimore. So it was a pretty good, eventful series of planting and getting to know folks based on this study, the Sustainable City, 20 years of Baltimore being an urban ecological study. So that was very exciting. One of the first in the area. Prior to that, on Thursday, I was doing a little side of desk work. I gotta choose my words a little carefully, but I went to probably one of the best conferences I've been to in a while, hosted by Second Front, via a platform called Game Warden. It was called Offset Symposium, 2025. Now I found out about it through like the rumor mill, but it's probably something we should check out and dive a little deeper into. But yeah, that was my weekend short with work and running the gauntlet I just mentioned.
All right, good, man. Yeah, for me, just relaxing, just really taking it easy. I have some leave coming up starting tomorrow, so I'm just looking forward to just taking some time off and not think about work. And yeah, this past weekend, as I mentioned, like as anyone that knows me already, especially on LinkedIn and those who follow us know I'm a big sports fan and big Knicks fan, especially when it comes to basketball. The next week we took out the Boston Celtics over the weekend, so yeah, I'm very happy about that, and getting ready for the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. Really, like I said, just all in all, really just taking it easy. And I think we talked about that before, Fred. So just we, of course, as we work and as we grind, but we also need to make sure we take time just to kind of decompress and relax as well. So, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm on the relaxing part.
I feel like I have a little FOMO. I wonder if the city of New York is still celebrating.
They, it, I saw the videos of Seventh Ave, and yeah, they're wild right now.
Oh my goodness.
They are crazy. But all right, so as we get started, so Dr. Kathy, again, pleasure to have you on here. I'll start you off with the first question. So, as your career spans cybersecurity, enterprise learning, and IT operations across the several Fortune 50 companies. What leadership principles have remained constant for you despite the rapidly changing technology landscape?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, technology is evolving, but one constant is people still need direction, trust, and a sense of connection. So, one principle that stayed with me throughout my career is leading with clarity and purpose. So, whether I was driving a security program in healthcare, rolling out cloud transformation and telecom, or product enablement and financial services, I've always made sure that I'm grounding the team on the why. It's really important that we start out with a clear vision and every individual is connected to the broader outcomes and how they're going to contribute. And I like to prioritize dialogue and one on ones, having feedback loops. Um, and even more importantly, or equally as importantly, is I've had a lot of intense delivery cycles where morale has dipped in the team. So I make it a point to pause and ask, what does support look like for you now? And make sure that the team feels supported and seen. Because I find that when your team is supported, they're going to do their best work.
And no, and I think that's a great point. I do have one follow up when it comes to that. You- do you ever find, of course, as your team is currently constituted, I'm sure you've had the time to understand everyone's what works for everyone. I'm sure as a leader, you know that everyone responds differently. Everyone can't be treated the same. It's almost like children. Like each child is going to respond differently. So as for you, like, did you experience any? I want to say maybe like I guess growing pains when it comes to trying to learn your team, like learning how each one what motivates because what may motivate one may not work for the other. So did you experience that like trying when you try and get a feel for everyone and what trying to get the best out of them?
Absolutely. One broad perspective of that is when I made the transition almost 3 years ago from cybersecurity delivery to teaching education. Now I'm leading a balanced team of engineer, product managers, UXers, and project managers that are developing curriculum to support technologists. So they're motivated by creativity. Whereas when I was in cybersecurity, it was a lot was driven by what's the deadline? How can we get to the finish line very quickly? So there definitely were some growing pains for me personally as a leader to pause and make sure that I'm connected to what motivates the team and how they're going to deliver their absolute best. And what I found is I had to redefine what success looks like for me,
Mm.
moving away from those tight deadlines to a true quality product that's going to transform a technology organization with learning and development.
Awesome. And you touched on it a little bit, but let's dive a little deeper. As both a cybersecurity leader and educational technology expert, how do you approach the challenge of making complex security concepts accessible and actionable for non-technical stakeholders?
That's a great question. And it definitely is relevant in both spaces. I've always focused on context and connection. It's not enough to communicate, we've got a vulnerability, we need to address it, or we've got curriculum that we need to roll out. It's more about what's the actual impact. So, how is this going to affect business performance, revenue, or keeping our environment secure? And I like to take a risk based approach to deliver and prioritize what's going to have the greatest outcomes. And that's the same with training and development. So that would be the approach. Making sure that it's relatable and relevant because that's where you get buy in from your team and your customers.
And we've heard that impact Can you give us a little bit of an expansion from this cybersecurity delivery to, like you said, the creators? Is there room for gamification of that impact with the business stakeholders? Like, how do you incentivize them when it's not just patching criticals or vulnerabilities that may be delivery oriented?
That's a great question. I don't have a lot of experience with gamification, but I can think about when I was working to implement new data access controls and conveying that to the business. I like to leverage an analogy so that they think of it in simple terms. For example, an Airbnb, who has keys and how can they open, so that the
Nice.
stakeholder can really grasp the importance of why we need to have governance around access and helping them understand the value of keeping the environment secure and protected. That's really helped them understand the value and the impact more so than the technical jargon and details.
Excellent. All right. And so through Momentum Professional Development, you focus on empowering others through coaching and curated learning experiences. What common roadblocks do you see preventing technology professionals from reaching their full potential?
It's a great question. I coach a lot of high performers, and the number one roadblock that I see is holding on to past success. I love the
Mm,
book by Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I recommend that often. I've seen leaders plateau because they're clinging on to old ways of working. And then, in
yeah.
addition to that, as you're transitioning and growing in your career, self doubt can sneak in. So, I spend a lot of time coaching professionals to better understand their strengths, their unique value proposition. And there's tools such as Strength Finder 60s that will help you unlock those strengths. And in addition to that, I emphasize the importance of moving past any personal ceilings that you have. There's a book called The Big Leap that talks about how we often think we know how much success we can have. But when we move past that, it opens up so many possibilities. And that takes a lot of courage to really unlearn and reimagine what's possible for you.
I think I've seen, throughout my career, when I think about the most effective leaders that I've had the pleasure of working with are the ones that can adapt. Because yes, they may have come up, during their generation. Of course, everything is always going to evolve and be different. As you mentioned, Dr. Kathy, you have some that really kind of stay stuck, in those ways. Yeah, it may have worked 20, 25 years ago, but right now those ways don't necessarily translate. So yeah, when you have leaders that can understand, take a real pulse and sense of the team and of their current environment, say, hey, yes, this may have worked back then, but okay, I need to change so I can keep up. Those are the ones to me that really resonate. And from the flip side, when you have those that, as you mentioned, that really stay stuck in their ways and be like, no, this worked for me, and I'm just going to keep this going. You're going to lose people. Your message is really going to fall on deaf ears because and also, and that's where you kind of see like those generational gaps that really gets exposed because it's like, okay, yes, we understand, but this is current times. This is not working. We have different technology. We have different processes, and or even when we talk about how people used to talk to each other back at certain times, you can't say certain things now that you used to say back then. You can't say that. No, hey, you can't do that.
We're not taking it offline.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, again, it's just the point of like you have to adapt. The most effective leaders that I've experienced are the ones that understand the situation and can adapt, and and keep up with current times.
I agree.
So can I tack on to that because there's something that kind of like set off the light bulb for me too. As a technical professional, we tend to hold on to the, I don't know, I want to say adversity, but the weight of keeping up to date, like you're saying, Dr. Joseph. And some of those are tied to prior accolades, like you're saying, Dr. Kathy. So a lot of times what I think holds up professionals back are these not so much peer reviews, but these like performance rounds. I don't know if y'all heard of them on the government side where, you get an equity round because you did X amount of delivery or you get recognized in your org. because you're a leader in, let's say a code review. Those technical accolades tend to carry a weight even when you leave the company. Like think like a coaching plan, or they talk about performance improvement plans. For me, especially when I see that pace, and then I go to a company that may have, not so much a legacy mindset, because that's kind of mean, but like you said, not with the times of how we deliver, it becomes a drag. And then you get caught in, as somebody that I think of myself as a technical leader too, you get stuck in these resume recitals with peers at the same level. And they start rehashing, this is what I did. Like I do it sometimes too, and I have to check myself. This is what I did, and this is how I'm used to it. But how the other idea is, how do we learn or unlearn, to both of your points, what didn't work in the past, especially when someone's been penalized for being an exceptional leader or a thriving technical delivery lead. Right. So a lot of times what I've seen, even at peers at my level or higher, is they hold that weight when they leave and go to other companies, because it's almost like you're being penalized for being a great technical professional.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. I've heard buddies say, like, man, I really hated that coaching plan from 5 years ago. Well, are you still at that company? No, I'm just really thinking like it's gonna happen again. And it's almost like a stigmatism, because I don't want that improvement plan or that particular penalization. I'm not gonna hit that peak leadership round. I'm not gonna go for the principal architect or whatever,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
my favorite is something that I've seen, senior manager, SVP, those levels that kind of require you to train people out of that mindset is almost twice as harder to do. And it's hard to influence someone in the technical career to do it. To be honest, most ICs don't want to be that leader because of those previous experiences.
Right. Right. So, Dr. Kathi, so having worked across healthcare, telecommunications, and financial services, how do you adapt your approach to technology transformation for different industry contexts and organizational cultures?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, the adaptability piece is key. And I spent 10 years at AT&T where everything moved at the speed of scale. And when I was leading the new business of Digital Life, which was a competitor of ADT, think of Internet of Things, home automation. Everything was about rapid innovation with tight operational insight. And fast forward when I moved into financial services and I was at US Bank, the priority was completely different. It was risk mitigation, governance, and stability. So I had to adapt and I shifted. And my core skills remained the same. It was more so about how I communicated and how quickly I move. So I had to, again, redefine success and focus more on listening, observing the culture, the pace, and then aligning and delivering what mattered to that business most.
Awesome.
There's so many thoughts I want to tackle, and that sounds also, in addition to the adaptability, you had to be resilient. Right. So there's a lot of things that I heard with the speed of innovation, especially coming from the financial services. You're right. It's purely risk derived, and if it could happen, not when. But when I heard the AT&T innovation strategy, we're moving at this pace because we need to deliver on the promise, deliver to industry. So you're right. There's a resiliency, not so much downgrade, but scaling the approach, and also being hyper tuned to that culture, because a lot of the culture, when they see that pace and they're risk oriented, there's pushback. So there's a lot to say, hey, we can't move this fast because of the risk, right? So I applaud that analysis, because it sounds like also in addition to being adaptive, you have to be resilient to the culture shock that comes from
Absolutely.
changing organizations.
Absolutely. And I think about something you were talking about earlier. So many people are focused on performing at a 10 that they never move to an 11 so that they can get to 20. And being resilient with that learning curve has definitely been a challenge. And it's been a great opportunity as well.
Nice.
So, your work emphasizes building inclusive teams. What specific practices have you found most effective for fostering diversity and inclusion in technology environments that have traditionally struggled in this area?
Well, inclusion isn't a side initiative. It has to be built in the way that we work. So, in my current space, I'm leading a balanced team where engineers are working completely different from product managers and UX designers and project managers. So, it becomes, again, really important to tie everyone to their individual contribution. It's I mentioned earlier, and make sure they see the value, not just of their work, but their team members' work. So some of the practices that I put in place is rotating who leads a meeting, also making sure that we have a space to share without judgment. And again, I go back to when I'm connecting one on one, it really goes a long way to say, how are you really doing? Because when you think of inclusion, making sure that everybody feels seen, heard, and valued, people have different challenges. So being able to hear what they're facing and help them work towards strategies to be their best selves personally and at work, I found that to be very valuable.
I think that's definitely spot on because, I mean, let's face it, as much as we try to keep our work and home life separate, they do bleed over. Sometimes, if as a leader, something you can point out when I would say it's important to kind of take note or really pay attention to your team, and when like when someone's maybe off on how they perform, or maybe something's going on, and you'd be able to take them aside and just have a discussion, say, hey, how's everything going? They may share something, say, hey, they're dealing with a sick family member, or may have just had a kid, and they're staying up all night. And I mean, those are real things. I mean, as much as we try to say, be professional, but yeah, but we can't ignore things we do have going on at home. So yeah, I think, and also as a leader, when you're able to pick up on those things and have those discussions, and see how you can help, helping that employee for them to perform, at the highest level, that employee will definitely take note and remember that, I think it will help them to even work even harder, because as you mentioned, Dr. Kathy, everyone wants to feel seen and valued. When as a leader, you're given that, you're given that time, and you really want to, you're genuinely asking, hey, how are you doing, and you're there to listen and take it in. That for one, I believe it helps to build a stronger team, a stronger bond, and also is going to raise that productivity, because now they don't just feel like what their work is just is all for nothing, but they do feel appreciated for what they do. It's going to push them to work harder.
Absolutely. And I think that's another shift where 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was very common to never take a sick day.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm consistently encouraging my team, if you don't feel well, take the time you need. I had a leader previously that came up in the time where you didn't take sick days. So they were working while they're sick. And I had to pull them to the side and really emphasize that your team is watching you and you want to model the behavior that you want your team to be empowered to do. And they had never had anyone empower them to say, it's okay to take a sick day. It's okay to take a mental health day.
Right.
So that's really important.
I'm listening, and as one that's never formally been a leader, and I'm usually on the receiving end of those type of leadership structures, I want to applaud you both, because something you both said that resonates, that I don't see in the industry even today, is the appreciation. What I tend to do as a non-leader IC or any of my peers, outside the desk on my own time or on my own time, makes me better at my job. So the fact that I hear the appreciation factor, going to conferences could be another example. Gardening, the analytical mindset, the detox, right? The savant leadership I get from Leaders Eat Last. I didn't finish that book, but they talk about that. Hey, lead forward and empower so you can be the savant savior leader. Because a lot of the times, even as non-leadership, like as somebody that hasn't formally led to, you want a leader to say, hey, look, keep up the good job. You're appreciated for your action. You're appreciated for your hobbies. What do you do to relax? Right. Only recently from the pandemic have I started to see that. And I'm still, like you said, I'm still up unlearning that 15-year mindset. Well, I got to go overtime, or I can't take a day. They're not, it's no me without my team. Those things, those things are still stuck the more experience you get. And then also the different type of toxic. Now I did talk about this too, but the different types of toxic leadership that you see, you're kind of dissuaded, you're kind of demoralized, because you never think you're going to get appreciated. So y'all both knocked it out the park with the appreciation factor and the empowerment, because there should be more leaders, and I think something's starting here, that do both. And today, especially since the pandemic, we're starting to see that unravel. Like, most people don't want to show up and work for their leader if they're not doing it the way you guys are highlighting, both the doctors are highlighting.
So I even share, as I mentioned, I'm getting ready to take leave starting this week. And as we talk about trying to develop leaders, yet I appoint someone from my team to serve in the acting chief role while I'm away. And that's to help them in their development, for their personal goals or what they want to accomplish. And those are definitely, resume bullet worthy items. So I mean, yeah, if you're able to cover down, for a couple of days and take on those responsibilities, those are things you could legitimately put on your resume. So I do think about that as well. You want to make sure that you are developing leaders within your team, and also you should I think as a leader you should take it as a sense of pride if you see members of your team explore opportunities, and it's because of them being on your team they got that experience. So I don't look at it as a threat. I see it as a sense of pride that they, they're able to take on that position or this new role because of what they learn while under my team. So no, I think that's what the mindset should be. We shouldn't try to get in front, stand in the way of anyone. We should be trying to help, and again, and kind of Dr. Kathy pointed out, really understanding your team, what their goals are when you have those one-on-ones, understand what it is that they want to do. Because I understand, like, hey, I know you don't want to be here for 20 years. Like, what are your goals? Like, what is that you want to do? What's the next step for you in your career path? Because I've had leaders where, that didn't want you to excel and move on because it was just helping them look good. And that's something when I got into this role that I do recall that I was like, okay, that's what I don't want to do. So because you remember how that makes you feel. No, it's I think it's definitely important to make sure that we are, understanding our team, know who they are as people, not just workers, but as people as a core, and then just going from there. And then you'll see the results when you're able to really connect with your team and see how they perform. They will generally, run through a wall for you because they feel appreciated and they know that their leadership cares.
So let's stay there just for a little bit more. I know we gotta move on a second, but whatever happened to that day in the life, I don't know what it's called on the government side, but whatever happened to that, like, hey, I'm going on vacation. You might be a deputy, you might be a manager, and you take the assistant manager and have them lead up. And I remember it was called a day in the life because you would rotate. I don't know, and it's different for startups too. I know startups do it like to kind of grow their own or train a trainer. But what happened to that like mindset of, yes, this person is strong, and I want them to eventually succeed? Because I believe a good leader is going to want that. To your point, Dr. Joseph, you're going to want to see, hey, who's going to succeed me because I want them to thrive and survive. And then when I move up, because it is a chain, right? It's not the chain of custody like we talk about in cybersecurity, but it's the chain to build. If I'm one leader, I should be building 3 to 4 to succeed me,
Right,
right?
yeah.
And those leaders can go out and justify like, hey, they can lead difficult challenges. I remember it was called Day of the Life. I don't know if that was a formal thing, but you want 2 to 1, you want 3 to 1, depending on how many folks want to be recognized. You can actually pump up the saving their career. Let's just be real. You could say, hey, because you did this day in the life, you have the skills to pay the bills. You have the lottery ticket, as I like to say, or you got on the lotto bus, and you can lead any challenging scenario. So I'm wondering what happened to that, at least in the private side. I don't know what threw that off, but that used to be like a core requirement. You want to be training a trainer and training your replacement. So one, you move up the stack, and then you can spread out. But I don't think that's formalized. I think that depends on the leadership
I
team.
think it comes down to trust, man. You got to trust your team because if you're not doing stuff like that, then why are you doing it? And honestly, I think it's a reflection as a leader.
Okay.
If you as a leader can't train people to take to the next level, if you're just keeping them stagnant and staying in place, then I think that's a negative reflection
I
of
think
you as
that's
a
how
leader.
gatekeeping stays around.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like as I mentioned, like my previous leadership, early in my career, like I've had leaders that didn't want you to excel because they want you to stay right there to help them to continue to look good, and that's to me that's toxic, and that's what you want to stay away from. As a leader, you should be training others, and again, you get an understanding of where they are, what they want to do in their careers, and then you should be helping them work towards that. Give them opportunities so they could excel. The work that they're being assigned is this going to help them get to the next level, not just busy work, but is this work that's substantial that's going to help them elevate, get them outside of their comfort zones, you know, when maybe you have like certain events that may come up and say, hey, I think you should lead this. And yeah, I know you didn't do it before, but I think when we had our one-on-ones, you say you wanted to do this. So, hey, this opportunity is here. I think you should take it. We need to make sure that, and this all, again, I think that the common denominator with this is communication, understanding our team, learn about them, and then making sure that we put in each team member in a position to be successful. So I think that's
And
simply
also
it.
for the leaders, working with their leadership to clearly define what success looks like so that they're moving out of the what can I produce and deliver when they were an individual contributor to how many leaders can I develop and build.
Right.
That can
Hmm.
also create more confidence and security in that leader to relinquish some of the day to day.
100%. So I dug in the crates and I put a reference in our chat. There was a book many moons ago, like 10 or so years ago, called Tarnished. But it was exactly that structure and that we don't see in like agile or technical delivery in the private sector. Now, not to go too far down the military side, but you definitely should see the mapping in corporate structure. Like you said, you excel when you train and are known to build those quality leaders you both are speaking of, because otherwise we do have the toxic leadership that may gatekeep, impede, do coaching plans incorrectly, might not set up your career roadmap. And then when you leave a company, your culture shock is, hey, I brought my roadmap with me, to our point earlier. Like, I'm coming here with these goals that may not align to the leadership structure, may not align to the pace at which the company moves. So this is, I think we might have knocked this out the park. This is definitely a core requirement in some of the leadership, I won't say faults, but some of the gaps in leadership training for sure. Because I haven't seen, I mean, I've been in the industry almost 25 years now. I haven't seen that in corporate side, like that structured leadership, that structured mentorship, that direct mentorship, like it was called 10 or so years ago. It seems to be diminished because folks don't want that level up. And then there's some boss battles too. You are punching up. You are doing the skip level. You are saying this is the quality to which I need to be led. Let's lead out, because there are folks that are senior that are like, yo, I need a solid leader to see this vision, to see where we're going to go and how to get there. Not just the why, but how and so what. A lot of the challenges I see in the industry is that folks don't tend to manage those ICs that can lead, and they block them. They put a roadblock in their path to impede that person's career. So I put that reference in the chat because I remember that it came out of the crate a little bit here.
So we have Dr. Kathi Middleton here on the Cyber Coffee Hour, career coach and at Momentum Education. Here on the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Live Podcast Network. He's also a quick reminder to please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. As we get into the back half of the episode, as we learn a little bit more about Dr. Kathi, more about her career, but also the lighter side of things as well. So, Dr. Kathi, I'll give you the first one here. So, in addition to your work as a technology leader and career coach, so I understand you authored a book titled "Courageous: How to Transform Pain into Power." So, if you could share the journey that led you to write this book and how the insights you developed throughout your career in technology leadership have influenced your approach to helping others transform their challenges into opportunities for growth.
Sure. Well, the book actually started in a classroom. I was teaching a technology course at Clark Atlanta University, and a student asked me, but how did you get through the hard part? So put aside the technology concepts, but just the really hard days of the journey. And that same semester, I was also invited to give a TEDx talk. So both of those events really caused me to pause and reflect, not just on my career accomplishments, but the storms that I had weathered. So the challenge of learning I was adopted later on in life, dealing with abuse, navigating divorce, those overcoming those challenges. And in addition, navigating corporate America, where I felt at times alone, stuck, or unseen. That's what invited me to develop this book. And it's a toolkit. It's 9 principles that really help you navigate through pain with purpose and understand how leveraging and learning technology can really create endless possibilities for your life.
I think that's truly amazing. And for one, to take that opportunity. As I mean, we all go through things in our lives, in our lifetime. We're going to have struggles, difficulties, what have you. But I think it definitely takes another gear to be able to put all that, from what we experienced and put it into paper, or I guess into a book, and to put it out there. Also takes a lot of strength to encourage, because as we talk about some of those things, that we, some of those struggles, those experiences, those may be hard to talk about or to deal with. So I think that's a representation of how far one has come in their healing through those experiences. Because to be able to relive and speak about it, that does take a bit of like strength and vulnerability to go through that. So, but also, but doing that definitely will have a lasting effect for people who consume it, because you may have people that in similar situations, and they read this and go through it and say, "Hey, I see Dr. Kathy doing this. We're kind of, I've gone through this as well, so this is helping me as I'm going through this right now." They may be going through a tough spot, and be able to read, have that understanding that someone else, especially someone that looks like me, that's doing this and experience this, and it kind of gives me the courage to do it myself. So yeah, no, I think that's amazing. Of course, as you, for one, I always thought even just doing a dissertation was the biggest thing enough, but yeah, writing a book, that's a whole other.
It's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
I
so
still think that dissertation was more challenging.
no,
You think so? I think the book is more challenged. I think the book speaks to both sides of the house. Like you've gotten through the resilience gate. Now you have the legacy. Because to Dr. Joseph's point, well after we leave this planet, a book outlives us, right? So I think the book is going to speak to, dissertations are here in the moment. Not knocking it, because we had this conversation, Dr. Joseph. I don't think I'm getting a PhD. I'll be real. After my thesis, I was like, that's a wrap. But the book seems like there's a stepping stone, like it's gonna outlive you. And then to your point, there might be a generation of folks that don't know how to be as resilient, or might need that direct mentorship from the book, right? So I completely might, I'm gonna pick up a copy as well. But I also think that there's a level up in saying that this is gonna outlive me and be the example, because you're right, we have to be the example for those that are gonna follow after us. Okay, so sorry. What are the most significant emerging threats in cybersecurity today, and how should organizations prepare for them?
So we're shifting.
Yes, sorry, I should have let up a little
No,
bit.
that's okay. Definitely AI driven, whether it's phishing or deep fakes, or just the way that third party attacks are escalating. The threat landscape is definitely moving faster than organizations can keep up with.
Mm.
And what's really important is that we move away from the traditional lectures and slides when we're teaching about security, hygiene, and awareness, and
Yes.
moving more into scenario based simulations. So, whether we're simulating a breach exercise or what it looks like on the vendor side or real world vulnerabilities, it'll really help shift the mindset of it's not going to happen to us to are we ready when it happens. So, moving training away from just being a checkbox to creating that muscle memory, that's how we can build resilience within the organizations to combat the AI.
I think it's kind of what we talked about earlier, is really just evolving, keeping up with the times. I think that's a perfect example, even as so with this, and like how we train, how do we effectively train our workforce, that the tactics and techniques that worked before, it's not going to work now. We got to keep up with it, especially as you mentioned, AI, machine learning, quantum computing, things of that nature. Like all those things we have new technologies, and how we prepare for these things are going to be different. So we have to make sure we're keeping up with that, and we have that understanding, and making sure that our workforce is prepared for that as well. So yeah, if it's updated, of course, updated training, making sure that we keeping up with the latest regulations, whether like NIST, CNSS, or whatever the case is. Just making sure that we're like, I can't stress this enough, that we're not being outdated, because our adversaries, I think, honestly, I think that our adversaries are more organized than us.
Okay, let's take. I knew you was gonna go there, so
No, seriously.
let's punch that ticket in a second, Dr. Joseph. Go ahead.
Right. No. So I'll just say, adversaries, I think they move. I think a lot of times you think like they move almost in unison on a lot of things, and where sometimes when we look back, and not just here in the homeland, but even like other nations where they're not, we don't have that same sort of uniform. I don't know.
Cohesion. It's
Yeah,
cohesion. It is.
it's definitely different. Like so, like our response is not always. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say like we're weak or nothing like that. But you could tell like there is some, especially how we train. If we're really trying to train our people, our workforce, future cybersecurity, not just cybersecurity leaders, but also technicians, our analysts, or what have you. We have to make sure that we're giving them the best every opportunity to be the best at what they're doing. We need to remove like these, high priced, priced out conferences or things like that, or certifications, or creating that pipeline made from college to the workforce, that we're to make sure that we're not having any impediments to making sure that if we're really serious about growing a very strong cybersecurity team, we need to make sure we are removing these roadblocks out the way, so that way they can perform at the best level, giving them all the necessary resources so they can perform. Because like again, I think our adversaries, man, they got a whole network. They're sharing stuff, and they're sharing the latest malware with each other and all this. I think it's crazy to me. We had the audacity to be like, oh no, you can't work with us because you're a woman. You can't do this because you don't have enough experience. Like what is that? Like what are we really doing?
I'll tell you what it is, because y'all both hit the ball at the park again. Second and third are loaded, bases are full, right? We are creating barriers to entry based on different adversities, right? So, male, female, this ethnicity, this lack of inclusion, this lack of equity, right? See, the adversaries understand equity, public and private. They're incentivized to move in better cohesion. And don't punch my ticket, Dr. Just. I know where I'm going with this. I'm on the outside looking in, but
No.
they are very dialed into public and private cohesion to build resilience for multi-generations, right? So they train their trainer, they're training their leaders. So this is how we be resilient, how we become resilient per advancing emerging threat, per advancing. So we're coming of age now, right? 20 years ago, that wasn't happening. It was reliability and performance. Perform, deliver the software, get the merit, get the gold star. Maybe you get promoted. Then on the other side, it was resilience. Can we take multiple hits and keep going in different technical infrastructures, but also losing a leadership structure? Somebody gets bumped up, somebody goes outside the org, somebody gets bumped down, somebody gets demoted, military. Somebody says, hey, I'm not going to work with this team anymore because I didn't get a leadership opportunity. That doesn't happen with the adversary. You will become the leader when you get trained up and resilient and make better leaders. So that's why I think in a generation's time, ours included, we've been in cyber for a while now, and even outside, right? They have made a generational stance that we will train resilient leaders to move circles around the single adversary, us, right? So what I'm noticing on the outside is they're lockstep in saying we'll adapt AI to do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll train the trainer. We'll create the leaders. We'll go through the simulations that Dr. Kathi is talking about, right? The models. And then what happens in 5, 10 years, we will outpace them. That's a guaranteed mission. See, civilians on our side aren't used to that mission. We're used to the moolah, right? Go to the conference to get the skills, even if I have to do it on my own time. But today, what I've noticed in 15, like you said, 10 to 15 years, it's together. There is no separate mission, and there's no lacking in resources. We will spend the money to obtain that mission to outpace the single adversary, not to get too political. The other thing that I've noticed is when someone says, like Dr. Kathi said, hey, we don't know AI. Let's get 20 folks into a simulated lab, train them up, and make sure that all 20 perform at a leadership level to lead 200 more. The 10X factor. That's an old tactic. That's the 10X where I say, hey, if I'm not a 10X or 5X engineer or 10X or 5X leader, because there's a single column now in our adversary, you will be both by the end of this 5-year span. So I'm not knocking out. I love our country. I love the government. I love everything that we do here, but we have to step our game up because we're being outpaced for not just the 5, 10, 15, 25 years, 100-year span. 5 generations now when AI comes out and is operationalized, like we like to say in cyber. That's the model to where we've seen 3 generations of AI prior, not fit the bill. The next 4th gen is going to be the mature, conversation that we need to have, especially in cybersecurity. Those models are devised to counter our defenses and not to go into much of a tangent, but also counter their business logic flaws, right? Hey, we don't have a seated DSO, CISO, senior manager, staff architect. Doesn't matter the org, because the last piece that I'm actually trying to make an excuse not to get a PhD for is the cross sector analysis. This is the piece that I've been trying to find in my career too. Like, who's talking across sector at the same cohesion, at the same unified effort, right? We're losing organizations as we speak that do that. And that's the next generation. If we lose that structure, if we lose that resilience, well, we're going to get outpaced in the next few years, unfortunately. And it starts with leadership. It starts with those simulated labs. It starts with getting hands on keyboard and saying, this is how you lead. This is how you advance your technical stack. And these are the events you should go to at a, not so much the high bar, but the low premium, right? You don't have to pay because we paid for you to go, right? We paid for you to see this experience with 5 of your peers. Now, we used to do that 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know what's happening today.
Gotcha. I think you got the next one.
Okay, sorry. Which technologies first sparked your interest in cybersecurity? I got a little hyped.
No. Well, when I was at AT&T, I spent most of the 10 years leading large infrastructure programs, and I deployed the infrastructure for the home automation security product that I was sharing with you all. And then shortly after, the client asked me to come over and lead the project management office for this new business. So again, smart locks, cameras, thermostats, and as we were rolling out this new product, we had to think about the security implications of a connected home. One example of a solution that we implemented was encrypted device authentication. So every device had to pass the secure handshake to join the network and make sure that there wasn't any unauthorized access. And it was complex at the time. It was challenging. And I fell in love with the challenge. I'm always chasing a challenge. And that experience shifted me into cybersecurity. And shortly after, I left AT&T and went and led large programs in cyber at fintech companies, healthcare, and then in retail.
Now that sounds very familiar. You said home automation, right? Was it a partnership with ADC?
No, it was a competitor, Digital Life.
Digital Life. Okay, I thought it was the Nest at first.
Wow.
Okay, Digital Life. Thank you for that.
What significant obstacles did you encounter on your path to success, and how did you navigate them?
Well, one of the obstacles that always comes up for me is being in rooms where no one else looks like me, and definitely questioning, do I belong here? And then compound that with dealing with imposter syndrome, burnout, and grief, and having to still perform throughout all of that. And what has saved me has been community. So whether that's been peers, my mentees that have inspired me, my mentors, sponsors, it's that community that's really challenged me, encouraged me, and that keeps me grounded. In addition, I've also leaned into self-awareness, done a lot of coaching, therapy, to make sure that I know myself well and I can manage my energy well and show up as my best self, my most confident self, in spite of being the only one in the room, in hopes that that won't be the case down the road.
Excellent.
I think that's a great point because I definitely experienced that as well, where you had that imposter syndrome. I even kind of going back during the doctoral journey. Believe me, there were a lot of times I was like, I don't know,
Wait, which journey, Dr. Joseph?
going for the doctorate.
Yeah. Right. The gauntlet.
So yeah, so no, yeah, I think it is important to lean on those that support you, as you mentioned, community, and that could be make up your friends, your family, whoever it is, mentees, coworkers, whatever the case is, those that you entrust that are within your circle that support you. You're just going. That's when you really need to lean on them during those times, because if you're kind of left to your own thoughts, you don't want that to dominate. So you want to, of course, you want to have those feelings are valid, but also at the same time, you want to make sure that you understand, like, you are here for a reason. Where you're pursuing is worth it. Of course, there's always going to be difficulties, but you can't let that overtake you. No, again, as you mentioned, Dr. Kathy, I definitely understood that. I felt that because a lot of things that are difficult to pursue, and of course, our friends are sure he could attest to this as well. I think with anything that's work that you're where you're trying to move up to the next level, where you're trying to level up, and always, you always hear about you're doing something that you've never done before. It is going to be difficult that you may question yourself, whether you're doing the right thing or not. So I think that's important.
So the dust mites are, they're affecting me, right?
Nah.
I'm getting a little emotional because, and I'll say it, I'll admit it here on the Cyber Coffee Hour. It's only that few years ago that you say, "Oh man, why don't we talk about this? Why don't we start a podcast? Why don't we have that community of practice?" Because you're right, I felt like I was by myself for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And until we linked up like we did, Dr. Joseph, it's really, and like you're saying, Dr. Kathy, we didn't have that community. I didn't feel like I had that community. I didn't feel like I had that belonging. I felt like I was just like the wanderer in the wasteland. And I'm making light of him, laughing and gonna cry later. It seems like it's a trend that's happening now. You need that community so that imposter syndrome can be doused out, right? Then the other thing that I hear is if you don't find that community, if you don't find that tribe, the other lurking in the room is what we call cyber burnout and PTSD. You're gonna be stressed. You're not gonna know how to cope. You're not gonna know how to unleash the burden so you can level up. It might hinder your level up. So we talked about that in our founding, Dr. Justin. And here it is. I'll be honest with you, 2 more years here. This will be the longest running project I've ever had. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, contract or not, right? So this is why we started up. And I'm glad you said it, Dr. Kathy. This is the community practice. This is how we're giving away our secret sauce, our secret coffee recipe. But this is how we started the community practice for those very same things you identified. There wasn't a sense of belonging. There wasn't a sense of community. It always felt like, you were this druid in the wasteland going bunker to bunker, not to be too dystopian, but let's lighten the mood a little bit. One of our most important question of the show: which coffee helps you power through your day?
Genius Brew. It's by VitaCup. So it has MCT oil and B12. So it gives me a lot of focus, energy, and joy. So this will help me get through any 9 a.m. meeting, whether it's a security review or whatnot, and just stay focused.
You said
That name alone brightened my whole horizon. It's called Genius Brew
Yes, by VitaCup.
by VitaCup. Hold on, let me look that up right now.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even know. I don't think I've heard of that. Genius Brew. So is it through a coffee shop, or is it like through a K cup, or is it? I know you
It
said
is a
Vita
K
cup.
cup.
Is it K?
And
Oh,
you can get it
okay.
on Amazon.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reach across the aisle, Doctor.
Yeah.
I'm looking up right now. So they have their own site, online portfolio, and then they have Amazon. And looks like I don't think it's in Walmart, but I can see. I'm gonna put a link in the chat. We'll post it up.
Okay.
It just like literally that's what we're here for. That name alone brightened up the whole coffee spectrum for me. But then you said, it says that's turmeric. And what other essentials does it have in it from your experience?
Follow the coconut oil and the B12. I'm sure there's a lot of other
Oh,
supplements.
it's over. Oh yeah, definitely have to check that one out.
If you could have any superpower to help you in cybersecurity, what would it be and why?
Instant clarity. So just the ability to cut through the noise and really get to the root of the issue in seconds. In cyber, there's so much noise, and that clarity helps to create action. So that would be my superpower. And I also feel like that's my secret sauce in real life. I'm great at helping people and teams cut through the confusion so that they can move forward quickly and with purpose.
Nice.
That's almost like a X-Men Professor Xavier. Just cut through everything. Just kind of go right into your mind.
What was the system that he used? What was that called? Do you remember how I remember the first gen. Remember how they connected them to a system? He could see, like he could do the Batman echolocation.
If he was really expanding through the whole network, because he was always in a wheelchair, but then he'll put on a helmet and he could pretty much see everyone at all times. But mainly his power was like mind reading, to telepathy, and he's like speaking to you in your brain, which was.
So that's the clarity portion. Like,
I mean, it doesn't get
inner voice.
It doesn't get clearer than that, man. I mean, that's right there in your mind. And last question for you, Dr. Kathy. What hobbies, interests, or recreational activities do you enjoy beyond cybersecurity?
Excuse me, it's allergy season.
No, it's all good.
So I love traveling, not to escape, but to learn. This past February, I went to Bangkok, and that was a great
Oh,
experience.
nice.
Just learning about other cultures, it just sparks new perspective and creativity. I also love to read. Bios are my favorite.
Yeah.
Those real stories just really inspire me more than textbooks. And then I recently got back into CrossFit. So I love starting my day with a challenging workout. I'm a firm believer of how you do one thing is how you do everything. So just pushing through, challenging myself, it really helps me to show up consistently and focus on being my best self.
Nice.
So as you mentioned, you went to Bangkok. What would you say is maybe one of your favorite stops that you've been on?
In Bangkok or just
Yeah, just in general, like other cities you travel or countries you travel.
I would say Maui. That's my favorite
Maui.
place. I
Okay.
went on a solo trip there last year. That was my first solo trip that wasn't work related. And
Yeah.
I just love the scenery. It's just beautiful and the weather's amazing.
Is that the one with the big swing? Maybe I'm thinking of maybe I'm thinking of somewhere else. Yeah, they have like this big swing. It's almost like you're hanging off a mountain. I can't. I don't think it's
I
Maui
have to
though.
look into that.
It's
I've
yeah.
only been to Honolulu and Maui, so I'm not sure. I haven't come
Gotcha.
across the big swing.
Well,
And what do
no.
you?
Well, I don't. I don't think it's in. I don't think it's Hawaii. I think it's in. I think it's in Asia or something like that. Again, I have to look it up. I'm sorry,
Okay.
but Alfredo, sorry.
And so do you have a pre-planned learning journey, or you just kind of absorb that area's culture? Like, what do you go to set out to learn in those travels?
To just take it moment by moment, staying present. If I'm traveling with friends, they'll definitely have itinerary. If I'm by myself, I'm just gonna wing it.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
whether it's meeting someone on the plane, I did a wine tour when I went to Maui and just connecting with people and just learning like, why are you here? Where do you live? Just those simple things.
The day in the life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dr. Kathy, it's been an absolute pleasure have you on the show.
Yes.
Definitely enjoyed this time with you, and I'm glad that we finally made this happen. So thank you again. So before we let you go, if there's anything you want to share with our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, foremost, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for being patient and persistent. I really appreciate that. I would say that no matter where you are in your journey, remember that your past doesn't disqualify you. It's just a starting point and it equips you. So own your story, lead with courage, and know that your next step, success, is just a bold step away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
And
you all.
thank you for those of you watching and joining us for another episode of the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode, explore more engaging content in the Alive Podcast Network app. By supporting this podcast and nearly 100 other Black hosted shows, you can enjoy ad-free listening while contributing to a diverse range of voices in the podcasting space. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more insightful conversations with you in our next episode. So until then, keep brewing those ideas and stay curious about cybersecurity. All right, that's it. It's a wrap. We out of here. Peace.
See you.